Talk about Rob Zombie.
Ladies and gentlemen, apparently Steve here has a problem with Rob Zombie, and he's going against the entire grain of the world, apparently, or just these two guys, at least.
Yeah, it might be more like that.
Yeah. So, okay. So why do you guys like Rob Zombie?
Because he's good.
How could you not like Rob Zombie? He's the best. His music is awesome.
That's a Brian answer.
His movies are great, mostly.
Facts.
It's because he's good.
That was like Brian saying, "Oh, really?" I mean, why do you like Rob?
Well, I mean, this is
movies and music.
You posed the question, so and it's
Yeah.
a little bit of a lengthy answer, so we can start from music. Personally, at that time in my life, obviously I was listening to that type of music. You were actually too. I remember that.
Sure, when it came out, it was something different.
When it came to Rob Zombie, my first actual...
Somebody went to QXT's like...
Yeah, I didn't shower. Look at me. So when it came to Rob Zombie, the first time I actually heard Rob Zombie was through Twisted Metal 3.
Okay.
All right?
Really?
I was still urban youth at that point.
So it was a video game.
This was 1998.
That's how it ties together.
This is one of my first forays into metal music, which of course became a lifestyle, as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Notice the long hair.
Yeah. The long
Our
hair.
resident black guy into metal.
The spiked armbands, I got all that. Just not here.
It's closed doors only, people.
It's probably one of the most influential and one of the most influential music that I've listened to as a metal fan, because it was my beginning. It was my start. His music got me started.
It was really him that really started.
Hellbilly Deluxe, the album, was the first metal album I bought.
Interesting.
Okay.
And through a video game of all,
Yes,
naturally.
because
Through a
of
video
that
game.
Because of a horrendous sequel to a game
Now,
that I
question. I think a lot of people got into White Zombie
Yes.
because of Beavis and Butthead. I mean, it seems like you missed that. Like, it was
Yeah, I
really
missed it.
what kind of pushed him through.
Oh, I agree about that. I think that, the whole Beavis and Butthead thing, where they kind of gave a bunch of people a start. You know what I mean? But
and
just
ruined others.
yes, absolutely. But to note on that, obviously, I don't actually recall which. Was it Thunderkiss that they were listening
Yeah, it was
to?
the video that was popular.
Right, I think it must have been Thunderkiss. Yeah, it's Thunderkiss. Yeah. So, yeah. At the time when we were listening to stuff, I was really into other music, obviously Metallica and Type O Negative and stuff like that. And this had a slight different edge to it, to me, than those sounds. So I guess it would say it was new.
I'll give him that. He sort of introduced the culture to the retro horror movie.
Yeah.
I think everyone had forgotten about these horror B movies or these grindhouse movies.
Right.
and it's all very Alice Cooper. And
It is.
Trying to shock, sure.
But I mean, then again, I always looked at Alice Cooper as somebody who dressed the part, but never actually sung the part.
Absolutely not.
He didn't go as far, but I mean that was a different era.
Underneath the makeup, Alice Cooper's really just
he didn't quite go King Diamond on it.
No. Satan. Alice Cooper is he's a guy named Vince.
Yeah. No. Like Frank Zappa wrote a lot of psychedelic music and never took drugs in his life.
Absolutely not.
So, all right. Well, I mean, that's as far as Rob Zombie and White Zombie start.
His music.
Yeah,
I
like
think
that.
his music eventually started getting overplayed. I mean, it was just like, okay, here it goes again. Oh, and here's another band that sounds like him, and just constant, cacophony of.
Musical trends really just can't be avoided. I mean, if something hits, there's always going to be a bunch of Me Too bands that come along.
Certainly.
Look at the metalcore industry, and
which I know nothing
Don't
about.
get me started.
And a band that B-Ry loves, Five Finger Death Punch.
I don't love
they
them.
great?
I don't love them.
Isn't Dude Bro music great?
No.
Dude,
Okay.
it is Dude. And
I know it is Dude Bro music.
And
but
we will do a show about that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not going to get into that right now, but that's an hour-long fucking show right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I'm not into that music that much. We've discussed this on a previous episode, but you know,
Never aired.
Yeah, it never did. So maybe it will at some point. Astro Creep 2000 was really what cemented me into really liking Rob Zombie a lot. Like, White Zombie, they died after that, and I just kept liking Rob Zombie all the way through his music. There are definitely some downs, I would say,
Like
but I liked his music till this point.
Yes. You remained a fan, whereas the mainstream kind of left him.
Yes.
You remained a fan.
Us as the fans, I guess we probably should touch upon what are our downs and Rob Zombie's musical
Without
career
a doubt.
at the very least.
Yes.
And we're probably going to have the same one in that case.
Well, Educated Horses.
Oh, yeah.
What a name for it now. Educated horses.
Educated horses.
What does that imply?
Do you know what that implies?
Shit.
Do you know what that implies?
What does it?
I remember reading up on it and just stopped giving a shit at this.
Right.
Well, what does it imply? Tell the people.
I could be wrong, and this could be me like just coming up with shit out of my brain, but I'm pretty sure Educated Horses had to do with like well-trained whores, like women who like
says.
Oh yeah, I'm actually pretty sure you're along the right track.
Yeah, like women who
along
are
the
very,
right racetrack.
I get it.
Well, so yeah, that was a down point. To me, it was like it abandoned everything that he had originally done up to that point as far as his musical interest. Now, I understand some people like to go off on a tangent here and there as bands. You got to try and grow and not be stagnant, I guess.
Every band has something when they try something new. It's happened to everyone, you know?
Right.
Like when Styx did Mr. Roboto.
Yes, just like that.
American Witch is pretty.
It was all right. It was definitely all right. I mean, but it was the one song that I would say that he actually said, "Well, I got to put something that sounds like my old shit on here."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's not like, you know, whatever. But I know personally right now that before we get into the movies, Steve has his own, you know, views on this music and like, you know, why he never really got latched into it. So, what do you think?
Well, the music to me just started sounding all the same. When it first came out, or his breakout album, like obviously, I didn't hear his two first albums. Maybe they were
Neither did I.
special.
Right.
But when they broke out to me, it was something special to me. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then album after album, it's kind of just like that's the remix version. So I was like, this isn't doing it for me. This is not very original. Like, do something new. And how can he do something new? He's got to have that persona. He's got to have that look.
Right.
You know.
Well, I mean, it's like Metallica in the beginning too. Like,
absolutely.
You have a sound, and then you try to vary it, like deviate from it. It's tough.
Yeah.
He has a total package type
He has
of
a
thing
package.
going on. Like
Yes,
sound,
and
visuals.
to me, that's just like this show. It's like New Kids on the Block. It's like the Backstreet Boys to me. It's just this produced thing. Now, he's a ringleader. I'm not saying any record label's telling him what to do. I'm pretty sure he's holding the leases, but he thinks like a record label.
It's kind of things like he was a hipster before it was
Absolutely.
Before it was cool, he was a hipster.
Absolutely.
Yep, it certainly
Radio,
can be
100%.
certainly can be said. I kind of dug the fact that he found a niche and like went with it. When you were kind of looking like, you know, he found this niche and now it's overdone. By staying straight and steady with his sound and his look, he kept fans until Educated Horses. And it dropped. I'm telling you, I mean, it made me almost like not pick up Hellbilly Deluxe 2.
I mean, that would have been a tragedy.
Yeah.
That was a great album, but
Yeah.
even I don't particularly like the album after that, where he kind of went backwards again.
Yeah.
Then as a result, he got into movies.
When it comes to a guy who basically predicated his entire career off the horror genre and just kind of adding that to music, of course, if he has any directorial chops whatsoever, he's going to put it to use into making his own movies.
Yeah.
Which, of course, House of a Thousand Corpses was the first one. Derivative, but enjoyable. I mean, you have an input on that one?
Well, I completely agree. That is definitely an enjoyable movie, if not for just the fact that it felt like an old school kind of horror flick in a modern day. You know, yeah, derivative. Yes, it was like, you know, at times almost like shot for shot lifted from things, but it still had that like really kind of like 70s like feel to it as far as like, you know, like modern horror with we discussed this at length before too, how it's just all over the place and Japanese and fucking god awful. That at least it felt like somebody was trying to do something that was a little more in the vein of that. And you know, I would say
someone cares again,
right?
Steve,
we care. Yeah, like you said, when any director decides to start making movies,
yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's a challenge, sometimes it doesn't really go well. To me, House of a Thousand Corpses just was like a bunch of horseshit to me. Like, that's all I could say about it. It just didn't, make any sense to me at all. And,
really?
And I didn't catch. Oh, really? And I didn't catch. Like, that whole, retro grindhouse thing did not come out to me. It was not very clear to me. I just thought it was just this silly, disorganized movie. And it just didn't mean anything. I was not impressed by it. I was like, this is just madness. I'm not into this.
Even I wouldn't disagree with you because it did fall apart at the end. But, I mean, the ride up to that point was still pretty enjoyable.
And not to mention...
For us, at least.
Well, and not to mention, you got a great character out of that movie in Captain Spaulding.
On The Devil's Rejects, I watched the movie through, and of course, he liked to bring obviously a lot of horror icons, from the guy from The Hills Have Eyes,
yep.
to Ken Foray,
yeah.
to Sid Haig.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I did like about the movie is for me, it did capture that Texas Chainsaw Massacre feel, which was really disturbing. However, continuing movies, I mean, he started to go into the remake thing, like, hey, let's remake Halloween. Why?
Also, a very good remake.
Yes.
I mean, in a world of horrendous remakes and reboots.
In a world
with horrendous remakes and reboots. He actually made probably one of the best remakes of any movie.
Right.
With the first one.
And I completely agree. The whole... And I wouldn't say it's not really a full remake. It's like a part prequel, part remake.
Yeah.
When you look at it, because there was a lot of that was never ever in any of the Halloween movies. With him as a child, and I really like that part.
He made that movie his own, and then with the second one, he just kind of made his own movie. Also, a very good horror movie in a world with terrible horror movies right now.
Yes.
I mean, the
horror movie.
We could really try and really pick that movie apart if we wanted to, but what is it going up against right now?
Right.
We've made an episode on this where we talked about how bad modern horror movies are. He's probably one of the few people who understands that genre enough to make a good one in this era.
What I don't like is, okay, remake a movie if you want. Some movies had some, unmemorable directors, but you're dealing with the great John Carpenter. John Carpenter did not intend for Michael Myers to have a childhood. Do you know how he got the mask? He needed a mask, so he sent someone to the store, and they came back with a William Shatner mask.
I know that.
And it was like, that's good, that's going to work. Like, it was so disorganized. But Robert Zombie's trying to make something out of this that was never intended to anything to ever be made.
Most things in the world that go into
They're
that...
thinking about it too much.
Right. People overdo it, they overthink it, but you know what? That's because fans are clamoring for more lore. They want more to it. So it's not like they made it because nobody wanted to see it. People fucking watched it. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like they just made Monster Closet and put it on the internet and nobody actually watched it.
Hit the subscribe button.
Subscribe.
Please take the time to press the subscribe button. The one that's about to hit you in the face.
Anyway.
So, but wasn't that a little meta?
Fourth wall.
So, but the truth is, though, that just to touch on what James said really quickly before we move on to movies past this, I thought that while it was still an entertaining movie, the second one, right? The whole beginning of Michael Myers as Ryu, stalking the universe for something more interesting to do, with his hood on and a bag over his shoulder, looking for his next fight or / victims, was extremely weird.
I think that music was playing the entire time as he was walking, just wherever he was, within 20 feet.
Yeah, but it just felt like that, and weird.
Rob Zombie gets a little weird sometimes.
I mean, it was just kind of out of place. I was like, Michael Myers is not just walking backwoods with a hood on and just being like, I wish my life had meaning. Oh, victims! Now, did you see El Superbeasto?
I heard it was the worst animated thing ever made in the history of animation
Yeah, like Werewolf Women of the SS in that type of vein, where that's like there was all kinds of like crazy bullshit going on in that movie.
Yes.
I don't even want to devote too much time on it. It's just it was a pile of shit that never came together.
Shit.
Now this is coming from somebody who likes Zombie, and you know he definitely, you know, like you said earlier, and I'm sure you know this too about like the whole Beavis and Butthead connection, like with his animation.
Yes.
So I mean, do you know what he did with that movie?
In the Beavis and Butthead movie, he did an animation sequence
Yeah.
where they were tripping on peyote.
The entire music video section where you're seeing like all the animated stuff and it's very trippy. That's all Zombie. He
Yeah,
draws.
he drew it.
He's a great artist.
And he draws.
Yes.
He does that too.
Yeah. I hear
Apparently-
jealousy.
He is
I hear jealousy.
multi-talented. He is a god among men, right, Steve?
A renaissance man, if you will.
If you will. Now, neither one of you
I just-
saw his most recent movie, though.
Which was...
Lords of Salem.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I heard... Well, we did mention that one in a previous episode. And,
Yeah.
was...
It, you know.
Did not do well.
It
Or
didn't do well.
Something doing well or not doing well doesn't really...
No, it's not a gauge.
it's not a gauge
No.
for a good
No, I mean-
movie.
It wasn't even so much that it didn't just do well. I mean, he had issues getting the movie produced, and then when it actually did open, it only showed up in like a handful of theaters.
Right.
And then, of course, the critics weren't the kindest to
No,
it.
sir.
So. I haven't seen it yet either, but
Someone like that, the critics are...
that's what I hear.
Critics are never going to be
That's a
nice
twist
to
off.
someone like that. The critics are more of a mainstream audience. When does a horror film ever get good reviews?
None, ever. Lords of Salem was, like, probably, I would say, one of his best directorial efforts as far as, like, you know, an eye for what looks good on film. I mean, just flat out, all of his work to that point, you could see from the beginning how much he has progressed as an actual director of the movies. I'm not talking story. I'm talking like, this is a beautiful movie to look at in the sense where it's like you feel decay, you feel like the desperation, the loneliness, and the weird setup of how like what was going on in this woman's life at the time. But, you know, story-wise, it flew off the handle.
I don't think he intends to make a straight story. He never intended.
Maybe not, but I mean, like, it had a great feel. Like, the whole movie had this really good feel and a kind of, like, mysterious setup. And then it gets to the end of it, and you're like, really? Really?
Really?
Oh, really, Rob Zombie? That's actually what I said to the movie.
Well, that, folks, is the Renaissance man they call Rob Zombie, which I am not impressed with.
Well,
But
Steve,
when am I ever impressed?
exactly. I mean,
These guys are going to like something.
You're gonna hate it.
I'm going to hate something.
you have more venom in your
Venom,
blood.
my blood
Yes.
runs rife with venom.